Formula One is, it's usually a sport of just brutal binary math.
Right.
Like the stopwatch just doesn't lie.
No, exactly. It's pure engineering. You're either fast or you're slow.
Right. You cross the line, the timing screen flashes purple or green, and that's it. But, you step into the Ferrari garage right now in this high-stakes 2026 season,
Yeah.
and that precise mathematical reality is just, it's completely shattered.
Oh, makes no sense.
None at all. We are looking at a dynamic right now that is defying the basic logic of the grid.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got a 7-time world champion who is suddenly finding his absolute killer groove while his highly rated teammate is just plunging into this massive crisis of confidence.
It is absolute psychological and technical whiplash. Like the Canadian Grand Prix was the absolute flashpoint for this.
Montreal was insane.
It was. You have Lewis Hamilton securing second place by aggressively passing Max Verstappen in turn 1, which, by the way, was Verstappen's very first podium of the entire season.
Yeah, finally, right?
Exactly. And Hamilton gets out of the car and literally calls it the happiest day of his Ferrari career so far.
But then, you look at the other side of the garage, Charles Leclerc finishes a distant 4th in the exact same machinery.
33 seconds behind.
Yeah, a 33-second gap between identical cars. That isn't just, a bad setup day. That points to a fundamental disconnect between the driver and the machinery. Leclerc straight up called it the worst weekend of his F1 career.
And he's right to feel that way. A 33-second gap in modern Formula One it's a tectonic shift. It tells us we aren't just looking at tire degradation or a missed breaking point.
Oh, it's way deeper.
Way deeper. We are looking at a complete overhaul of the technical regulations colliding with deep ingrained muscle memory. What we are seeing in the telemetry right now reveals this extreme divergence in driving styles. And, honestly, it could dictate the rest of the 2026 World Championship.
Okay, let's unpack this, because that divergence is what we need to pull apart today for everyone listening. And we have to start with the hardware. The 2026 Ferrari, the SF26, is a fundamentally different beast from those Grand Effect cars we saw from, 2022 to 2025?
Completely different DNA.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
If you haven't scoured the FIA rulebook this week, the major change basically boils down to how the cars generate downforce. Like riding in a pure ground effect car is a bit like, it's like trying to run on ice while balancing a tray of water.
Oh, I love that analogy.
Right. Any sudden movement ruins everything. It's like taking a heavy-duty suction cup to a glass window. If you pull it perfectly straight, it holds incredible weight. But if you peel just one edge like braking hard and dipping the nose of the car, the suction vanishes instantly.
Yes, and that pitch sensitivity is literally what defined the previous era. To keep that suction cup perfectly flat against the asphalt, teams had to run the suspension so stiff that the cars practically had no vertical travel at all.
Just brutal on the drivers, too.
Oh, physically punishing. But the 2026 regulations mandated higher ride heights. Teams can no longer rely on just sealing the floor to the track, which means they've had to design much more compliant, softer suspension systems to find a workable downforce and balance combination.
And that shift, that specific shift in suspension compliance, it seems to have acted like a time machine for Lewis Hamilton.
It really has.
I mean, looking at the corner entry traces from Montreal, he is attacking the braking zones with a level of violence we haven't seen since his dominant Mercedes years.
What's fascinating here is how the telemetry from turn 10 in Canada proves this perfectly.
Yeah.
Like, in a ground effect car, Hamilton's late braking style was lethal to his own lap time.
Because of the pitch, right?
Exactly. When he hit the brakes that late and that hard, the violent weight transfer to the front would lift the rear ride height just enough to break that aerodynamic seal. The aero balance shifted way too much to the front on entry, and then it snapped violently to the rear the second he released the brakes.
Right, which completely disrupts the platform. He couldn't carry minimum speed through the apex because the car was just unsettled.
Yeah, but the SF26 doesn't punish him for that weight transfer anymore.
Not at all.
The SF26 has arguably the best mid-corner adjustability on the grid right now. Because of the mechanical grip from that softer suspension, Hamilton can hustle the car again. He pitches the nose into the corner under heavy braking, but he finds this absolute sweet spot of rotation.
And he doesn't lose the exit speed.
Exactly. He bleeds off the brake pedal without scrubbing away the speed he gained on entry. His muscle memory from his glory days is finally perfectly aligned with the physics of the car again.
That sudden resurrection of Hamilton's braking confidence definitely explains the pace. But it doesn't fully explain how he arrived at the setup while Leclerc was completely lost.
Right, the preparation side.
Yeah, because here's where it gets really interesting. Hamilton completely ditched the Ferrari simulator ahead of the Canadian Grand Prix. And he did for Shanghai, too. Isn't ditching the simulator in modern F1 like showing up to a final exam without studying?
It looks like an enormous gamble from the outside, for sure.
Yeah.
Especially, under the constraints of the cost cap, where virtual testing is supposed to be absolutely everything.
Right, you can't just test on track whenever you want.
Exactly. But if you look at Hamilton's 2025 season, the simulator was actively destroying his race weekends. The correlation between the virtual model back in Maranello and the physical car on track was just completely broken.
Oh, wow. So he was getting bad data.
Terrible data. He would spend hours honing a setup direction in the sim, only to put the car on the asphalt for free practice 1 and find the baseline was totally undrivable.
Wait, so he was essentially spending his entire Friday trying to undo the virtual setup just to get back to zero.
Yes. He was constantly playing catch-up. So for 2026, he simply cut the cord. He focused obsessively on real-world, through-corner balance, and mechanical brake bias out on the track.
Just going off pure feel.
Pure feel and human communication. Taking the simulator out of the equation forced him to rely entirely on his real-time feedback loop with his new race engineer. He replaced the software correlation with human communication, and it allowed him to find a setup that exploits the SF26's slow speed handling perfectly.
Which brings us to the other side of the garage. And man, this is where the data gets genuinely puzzling.
The clerk side.
Yeah. I'm looking at LECLERC's battery deployment data from the tight chicanes in Montreal. His hybrid system is draining way faster than Hamilton's in the twisty sectors. Why is his specific driving style penalizing the MGUK in the battery like this?
Well, it comes down to how LECLERC forces the car to rotate. LECLERC has this extreme tolerance for oversteer. He dynamically dances with the weight distribution of all four corners.
He's always on a knife edge.
Always. And to achieve that without using massive, jerky steering inputs, he relies heavily on trailing throttle. As he enters the corner and applies the brakes, he keeps a tiny percentage of pressure on the throttle pedal at the exact same time.
Wait, really? So he is sending engine torque to the rear axle while simultaneously braking?
Yes.
Just specifically to keep the rear differential locked.
Exactly. It stabilizes the rear end under deceleration and gives him a very predictable platform to rotate around. But, and here's the catch, overlapping the throttle and brake creates a massive conflict for the hybrid system.
Oh, I see where this is going.
Right. The MGUK is trying to harvest kinetic energy from the rear axle under braking, but the internal combustion engine is still pushing torque through that same axle. You lose harvesting efficiency and you burn extra energy.
Leaving him with way less electrical deployment for the straights.
Exactly. It's a much busier style.
That explains the straight line deficit. But Montreal highlighted a much more severe issue. Like Montreal is a circuit with slow, short corners and a very smooth, low-grip track surface.
And it was freezing.
Yeah, unseasonably cold weather that weekend.
Right.
So tire warm-up becomes the single most critical factor of the entire race.
And this is where LECLERC's trailing throttle technique just completely backfired. Because he uses the rear of the car to dictate rotation, he doesn't load up the front tires aggressively on corner entry. And Pirelli's front tires have an incredibly narrow operating window. To wake them up to get the core of the tire into that temperature window, you have to punish them. You have to generate friction through heavy load.
So Hamilton's late-braking aggressive turn-in generates that friction naturally.
Exactly.
But LECLERC's smooth rear steer style doesn't generate that same front-end heat.
Not at all. It left LECLERC as a passenger. I mean, if the front tires are 20 degrees below their operating window, the car simply will not bite on turn-in. LECLERC even admitted on the radio that he never once got the tires into the correct phase.
That's brutal.
It is. He was driving a mechanically sound car that was just completely disconnected from the track surface. It was like a switch flipped off, leaving him helpless.
You know, the compounding effect of these differing styles is completely rewriting the narrative of this season. Let's lay out the numbers for you listening, because they show this isn't just a fluke overreaction to Canada.
The stats are wild.
Right. Last year, in 2025, Hamilton was visibly demoralized. He finished 6th overall with just 156 points, 0 main race podiums, and was comprehensively beaten by LECLERC. It honestly looked like the Ferrari move was a catastrophic mistake for his legacy.
Oh, the paddock was already drafting the retirement narratives. Everyone was writing him off.
But the snapshot right now, in 2026, is entirely different. Hamilton already has 2 podiums. He sits 4th in the standings with 72 points, and he is only 3 points behind Charles Leclerc.
3 points.
Just 3 points. And even in qualifying, which is universally recognized as Leclerc's absolute kingdom, his advantage over Hamilton across the season averages out to a razor-thin 37 hundredths of a second. The gap has basically evaporated.
And that kind of statistical parity triggers a massive psychological shift in the paddock. You don't have to look far to see the ripple effects.
Yeah, I saw what Esteban Ocon said.
Right. Esteban Ocon recently went on record declaring Hamilton the undeniable #1 driver of the modern era. He pointed to the 105 victories, the 104 poles, and the 204 podiums.
When a rival driver makes a statement like that unprompted, it tells you the aura of invincibility is returning.
Exactly. The grid is noticing that the aggressive, ruthless, confident version of Hamilton is truly back.
It also shifts the gravity inside Maranello. Hamilton isn't just racing Leclerc or Verstappen. He is chasing the ghost of Michael Schumacher. I mean, Schumacher defined the absolute peak of Ferrari by winning 5 straight championships.
The ultimate legacy.
Yeah. For Hamilton to cement his status as the unequivocal greatest of all time, the ultimate GO8, he has to conquer that ultimate pressure cooker. He has to win in red. Taking second place from Verstappen in Montreal, which really echoed those vicious 2021 battles, was a massive statement of intent. So what does this all mean going forward?
Well, that statement of intent is about to be tested at the most unforgiving circuit on the entire calendar. We are heading straight to the Monaco Grand Prix.
Monaco. The crucible. And the dynamics for Monaco this year are fascinating because of a massive 11th hour intervention by the FIA.
This is huge.
The governing body just banned the use of movable aerodynamics specifically for the Monaco circuit, citing severe safety concerns.
Yeah, the simulation data for the 2026 active aero systems was pointing toward an absolute disaster at Monaco. With the drag reduction elements fully deployed, the terminal speeds the cars were going to generate, exiting the tunnel and blasting down the hill into the harbor chicane, it was far beyond the safety tolerances of the barriers.
And there's virtually no runoff area there.
None. If a car suffers a snap of oversteer or a brake failure at those newly projected speeds, the consequences are catastrophic. So the FIA forces everyone to run static, fixed downforce for the entire weekend.
Which completely shakes up the pecking order. Mercedes currently has the most efficient aerodynamic package and the highest top speed, but stripping away the active aero neutralizes their biggest weapon.
Totally neutralizes it, because Monaco isn't about aero efficiency. It's about mechanical grip, chassis compliance over the bumps, and slow corner rotation.
Which is the exact design philosophy of the SF26.
Exactly. Without the active aero systems coming into play, Mercedes' top-end speed advantage is irrelevant. And their lower tire degradation doesn't matter on the streets of Monte Carlo, where passing is nearly impossible anyway. On paper, the static downforce mandate heavily favors Ferrari. They have the most mechanically compliant chassis on the grid right now.
So the tension inside the Ferrari garage is going to be suffocating. I mean, Leclerc won Monaco in 2024, breaking his hometown curse. He grew up taking the bus on the exact streets he's racing on.
That backyard.
Right. And his dynamite slow corner performance usually makes him the undisputed favorite. But with Hamilton riding this massive wave of momentum and perfectly attuned to the SF26's braking capabilities, we are looking at a genuine battle for internal supremacy. If Hamilton outqualifies Leclerc in Monaco, I mean, the psychological damage might be irreversible.
Oh, qualifying in Monaco is going to be the purest test of Hamilton's resurrected confidence. If he can place the car on pole around those barriers against a driver of Leclerc's caliber, it will absolutely confirm that his feel for the front axle is back to its absolute peak.
But Ferrari's ambitions go far beyond a single victory in Monaco. They have a major structural deficit to address if they want to legitimately catch Mercedes and challenge for the Constructors' Championship over the course of the season.
Right, because despite the brilliant mechanical grip of the SF26, they are just bleeding lap time on the long straights.
Yeah, the telemetry shows a persistent 25 horsepower deficit to the Mercedes power unit.
And in modern Formula One, giving up 25 horsepower is a gaping wound. It forces the aerodynamicists to run less wing just to defend on the straights, which then compromises cornering speed. It's this vicious cycle.
To break that cycle, Ferrari is waiting on final FIA confirmation to deploy a massive master plan. This engine upgrade, known internally as Plan ADUO Additional Design and Upgrade Opportunities.
The rollout strategy for Plan ADUO is highly aggressive, and it's specifically targeted. ADUO 1 is scheduled for the Austrian Grand Prix.
Which is a brilliant place to do it.
Exactly. The Red Bull Ring sits at high altitude, meaning the air is thinner, and the turbochargers have to work exponentially harder to compress the oxygen. It is an incredibly power-sensitive track. Ferrari's goal with ADU01 is to cut that 25 horsepower gap exactly in half, right where they need it most.
So they bring the fight closer in Austria, and then the final strike comes after the summer break. ADU02 is slated to debut at Zandvoort for the Dutch Grand Prix.
Which seems weird at first. Zandvoort is a high downforce, twisty circuit. It seems like a strange place to introduce an engine upgrade.
Why not wait for a power track?
Right, but it's a tactical deployment. Using Zandvoort allows Ferrari to validate the reliability and the mapping of the new power unit in a slightly lower stress environment before heading straight into the Temple of Speed. The Italian Grand Prix at Monza, ADU02, is designed to completely erase the remaining horsepower deficit, prepping the engine and ensuring the SF26 is at absolute peak power for Ferrari's home race.
Wow. It is a calculated roadmap to rip the championship away from Mercedes. But it brings up a massive variable.
It does.
We've spent this entire deep dive analyzing how the 2026 regulation shift away from ground effect resurrected Hamilton's late-breaking magic. He forced this dramatic internal shift, ditched the simulator, trusted his physical feedback, and found a delicate, millimeter-perfect mechanical balance in the SF26.
A balance that currently relies on a very specific, predictable torque delivery from the rear axle.
Exactly. So what happens when Plan ADU successfully injects an extra 25 horsepower into those rear wheels? You fundamentally alter how the car brakes traction out of slow corners. You change how the chassis pitches under heavy acceleration.
And that is the ultimate engineering paradox here. In Formula One, you can't just bolt on more power without affecting the chassis dynamics. A sudden, violent surge in torque could easily disrupt the delicate mechanical harmony that Hamilton has just finally grown comfortable with.
That's terrifying for them.
They could successfully cure their power deficit to Mercedes, only to inadvertently kill the drivability of the car. The very upgrade meant to win them the World Championship could throw their lead driver right back into the setup wilderness.
You solve the math problem on the dyno, but you introduce a human problem on the track. It just proves that while Formula One relies on telemetry and data, driver confidence is the one variable you cannot engineer.
Absolutely.
The dynamic inside Maranello is shifting by the minute, and this civil war between differing driving styles and massive technical upgrades is going to define the rest of the year. Keep a close eye on the telemetry out of Monaco, because the battle lines have been completely redrawn. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the SF26, and we'll see you next time.